Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Winsight Live. Let's start this morning with a couple of stories that are freshly published at Winsight Grocery Business. ShopRite has retooled its deli app, allowing customers for the first time to do things like decorate a cake online, order floral arrangements and balloons online, as well as their daily orders and come pick them up in the store or have them delivered. Also new today, the Norwegian company AutoStore, which is a developer of the micro-fulfillment technologies coming to HEB, has sued its rival Ocado, the UK-based company providing micro-fulfillment technologies for Kroger, alleging that Ocado has infringed upon 5 separate copyrights. I have no clue as to sort of how this thing is going to turn out, but it's interesting to know a little bit about the background that's shared inside the complaint, which was filed in Virginia yesterday, and we've got a hold of, talking a little bit about how AutoStore came to be. They were a Norwegian company that made machine parts that ran out of warehouse space. And one of their technology guys came up with this idea, well, let's make more use of the space we have. And instead of setting up our distribution like Domino's, we're going to set it up like Rubik's Cube. That was a kind of a seminal insight that gave rise to a warehouse first to solve their problems, and then subsequently deployed and sold to other warehouse providers and companies in other forms of trade now, including now grocery. Poised for explosive growth in the U.S. with Ocado's first centers opening early next year, and HEB's apparently brand new in Texas. This is going to be an interesting thing to watch, Phil.
Yeah, I definitely agree, John. And now I want to go back to your first story about the ShopRite Deli app. But first, I want to welcome Jackson Lewis from CSP, the tech editor, who's joining us today, and who's going to hopefully become a regular with us and give us some insight into technology. And also some sad news for us. Kat Martin is leaving us. She's going on to bigger and better, not than our webcast, but no. Winsight Grocery Business. Kat, it's going to be very sad to lose you. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for Winsight Grocery Business, for Winsight Live, and you will be missed, my friend.
Terrific
Thank you. I will miss this too. So.
Kat's been a terrific colleague. She actually did the story, I believe, on ShopRite's new deli app this morning.
Okay, so I'm going to then talk to Kat about that. I don't get this. Now, I know ShopRite really well. I have a huge amount of admiration for them. Why have, and I know other retailers have done the same thing, why just have a deli app? Why can't you incorporate this tool that sounds fabulous into your regular app? I mean, if we look at what Albertsons is trying to do, getting people to stop using Instacart, frankly, and go right to albertsons.com and beefing up what they want to do, why wouldn't ShopRite want to do the same thing?
I really don't know. I don't know if it's the back end type thing. I know I came from a baking magazine in a previous life. And so cake decorating was obviously huge. And it was right at the time when the technology was starting to boom and internet and apps were coming online. And I do know that, ordering a cake in particular is very difficult to integrate into an online type environment. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe there's too much back end to incorporate. I really don't know. But to me, a one-stop shop app would probably be hugely beneficial.
And I'd have to agree, but certainly seen other companies do something similar. For instance, when 7-Eleven came out with their delivery app, it was a separate app, the 7 Now app, from their loyalty app, their 7 Rewards app. So there might be something to that. Integrating an ordering system might be just a little too complicated with what they already have baked in there. But that's pure speculation.
Yeah. I just smart company. They have a lot of money. They've got a good technology team. I think we have to put the consumer first, and does the ShopRite consumer want to have 2 or 3 different apps? And do I want to order my groceries through Instacart, but when I want to order my deli, I go to the ShopRite deli app and stuff? It just seems a lot of cumbersome stuff. So we'll leave that, but I want to show you all something. This is going to be hard to see on camera. But if you can see it, it's not just a white card. It's actually embossed here with a mask. So it looks like wrong side. Yeah, you probably can't even see it. But it's embossed with a face mask on it. And I got it yesterday from a restaurant. And I'd never seen that before. And I said, wow, this is really smart. So I said to the waiter, what is this thing? Why are you putting these on the table with a face mask on it? Is it to remind people to wear face masks? He said, no, that's a face mask coaster. So rather than putting your face mask on the table, you put it on this to keep it more sanitary. And I thought that was so cool. And I asked for another couple of them so I could share it with you guys today. So, John, let's talk about something serious. Southeastern Grocers, WinnDixie is looking to do an IPO.
Well, they're exploring it. Let's put it that way. They acknowledged that they filed confidentially with the, an S-1 form for stock registration with the SEC this week. And I guess in this case, they're testing the waters with some institutional investors that can get access to their data and seeing whether to me, it sounds like they're seeing whether a public spinoff is an option for them at this point. As you probably know, Southeastern Grocers, the owner of WinnDixie, has been down this road before. 6 years ago, they filed for an IPO and never got that off the ground. They opted instead to do a really kind of interesting thing. They said, well, we're going to do a 5-year reinvention plan. And we've been seeing this. They've been making progress, slow progress, but they've been making progress, particularly on the WinnDixie and its new Hispanic concept called Fresco de Mas for several years now. They recently announced that they would kind of free themselves of the South Carolina-based banner Byerlys. But they're approaching a point at which this renewal period is ending, and they're going to have some sort of exit strategy, I think, from their owners. Their options are, some kind of acquisition or sale, perhaps a public spinoff. There's a big question coming up, getting back to Ocado and Kroger coming to Florida, with Ocado early next year with no stores to distribute those food to. It makes sense to ask about that. And we're going to have more on Southeastern Grocers shortly. And hopefully we'll get some answers. But right now they've acknowledged, hey, we're looking into our options, and a public spinoff is one of them.
So, Kat, as I think everybody knows in the industry, because I've said it for many years, Lunds, Byerlys, for me, is one of the best retailers out there. They do a great job. And you've found yet something else great to talk about.
Yeah. So, food service operators have been devastated by the pandemic. They've been slow to reopen. People are slow to get back. So what Lunds and Byerlys is doing is they're taking the pop-up concept, that was kind of popular a few years ago, where you'd have a pop-up store within a store, but they're doing the pop-up and they're doing it with local food trucks. So they have in their deli department, they have dedicated kitchen space, and every, 4 to 6 weeks, they're going to have a new food truck come in and do their menu there. And it's a way to introduce customers to maybe, food trucks that they're unfamiliar with, and also to help those food truck operators continue to reach out to customers and get sales. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody, and, bring new life into the prepared foods department, which grocers have struggled with too since the pandemic.
So just to be clear, it's not that they're going to give them space in the parking lot where the food truck can operate. They're actually going to be making it in their kitchen and selling it in their prepared food case.
Yeah, so it's in the store. I think I saw a picture of it in local press, and it's, they have a dedicated spot from a previous vendor that has left, and they have, the truck image on the outside. That's and cool. Then they just, put up whatever logo is, for that particular food truck. So customers do have to come into the store, and the vendors then do use a common kitchen. So the kitchen has been set up to prepare multiple types of food.
Any insight into the financial arrangement? I know that H-E-B and a couple other retailers for local restaurants have given them space similar where they're able to sell their prepared foods within the store. However, 100% of those dollars are going to those restaurants. H-E-B and retailers are not taking a cut at all. Do you know what Byerlys Lunds is doing on that?
I don't know. I would assume since this is a permanent type installation, this isn't something that I don't think they plan on going away, that I would assume there's some kind of split in the profit, but I don't know. Yeah. I do know it was kind of in the works before the pandemic hit. So this is something that they have been thinking about for a while.
And John, another favorite of my retailers are Schnooks. You say that they've learned a lot recently by using a specific technology. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the news this week is that Schnooks is rolling out these Simbe Robotics robots that they call Tally, which are 6-foot tall orange things that go up and down the aisles and take stock conditions and price checks and read codes and all that stuff at their store. So Schnooks, to back you up here, Schnooks started this test, I think, at one store in 2017, and it went to 16 stores or added another 15 stores in 2018, and now going to more than half the chain now. And so I caught up with Dave Steck, who is their IT guy over at Schnooks, and we kind of talked about a lot of the things that they've learned from this. And one of the things that was interesting to know, it's a small thing, but he said, we started running these things 3 times a day, and the data that they produced was so overwhelming for the store teams that they actually run it less often than that. They run it twice a day because, like I said, it's an incredible amount of data. In the day-to-day business, it's allowed what they call their PI clerks, who used to begin their days by traversing the aisles and eyeballing things, for spots out on the shelves, then going back to the back room and bringing the stuff out to fill those holes. Now they can report directly to the back room. According to Simbe, that's cutting some 70% of the work out of that whole process, which is, of course, is a boon to efficiency. And then, of course, when the pandemic came along, what Dave was able to tell me was, the massive amount of decimation in the stores when inventories were out on the shelves and in the back room. Perpetual inventory systems, that are based on sort of a normal cadence of sales wouldn't trigger a reorder because they say, oh no, there's more in the back room. And so what Tally was able to do for Schnooks was kind of override the issues that were keeping its perpetual inventory system from ordering enough, and fixing that process. Dave said overnight versus a manual, which would have been a couple of weeks. So that gave them a big hit in a very difficult time earlier this spring. So quite satisfied with the technology. Everybody seems pretty happy, and it's been a learning experience both operationally and it's helping them in a lot of other ways. Wayfinding in the stores, for example, they can tell people within 2 centimeters of where an item is on the shelf. They're not telling them exactly that, however, because they want them to shop the whole categories, right? So it's just an amazing amount of stuff that technology can do in a retail store, and then applied to the consumer. And that's, what you said about Schnooks, they're a customer-focused company with these great technologies, can really do cool things.
So, John, I remember we did a story and a video on Tally when it first came out. I think it was at Schnooks, but I could be wrong. It might have been a different retailer. And basically what they found, and this goes back 3 or 4 years ago, as you pointed out, what they found is it was really disruptive, that they weren't able to use it because basically shoppers wanted to take a selfie with Tally, that they weren't allowing Tally to do their work. They would, stand in front of it, let's take a selfie and so on. But I guess now the novelty is over. Nobody needs to take a selfie, especially now with social distancing and everything else going on in stores. But I'm happy to see that Tally is alive and well and growing. And
I had the same experience. I should just tell you, Stop and Shop with its Marty. Now, Marty is not scanning shelves, but they're scanning floors for hazards and spills and so forth. The first time I encountered a Marty, I did the same thing. Let's take a selfie with myself and him. The next time I saw it, no big deal.
Right.
So, that's how it is.
Yeah. So it's only for new customers, I guess. So Jackson, let's shift to you, and let's still talk tech, but let's talk about loyalty. What's going on with C-stores and loyalty?
It's so funny. What's going on with C-stores and loyalty right now really reflects what's going on with Tally, because it's really interesting that you're talking about this overwhelming amount of data that stores suddenly have because of the work that Tally's been doing. C-stores are kind of seeing a similar thing, getting deeper into loyalty. We did this big cover story for loyalty for our September issue, and in it, we realized that retailers who invested in loyalty programs that collect data and AI that uses that data to generate insights and deals that they can share with those customers, make their experience better, they're the ones who are actually winning, who are actually coming out a little bit better than would be expected during these tough times. And it's because through their loyalty programs, they have this ability to communicate with their customers. Quick Check, for instance, mid-sized chain in Texas, they, just before the pandemic hit early this year, they came out with a mobile payment system for their fuel. And I spoke with their CEO, Kevin Smart, and he said that he couldn't have possibly predicted that the pandemic would happen, but that he was sure glad that he had that mobile payment system set up because there was already that contactless option there ready. And they've been able to collect data on that, who uses that, why and how. And that's been able to inform their loyalty offering. So a lot of these low-key technologies are really going to be making a huge difference long-term.
And, it's really come a long way. We started seeing frequent shopper cards probably 20, 25 years ago. And whenever I would talk to a retailer about data that you were getting from this, the retailer said, in my back room, I've got carton upon carton about carton of printed reports, and we're not doing anything with them. They just didn't know what to do. And, so we've had these technologies out there, and finally, whether it be a retailer or a consumer, we're finally using this stuff. A lot of the stuff that IBM created 20, 25 years ago. I mean, I remember being in the IBM lab probably about 20 years ago, where they had a scale for produce that had cameras built into it that you didn't need a PLU number. What you would basically do is put a fruit or a vegetable on the scale. It would identify what that product was. It would have the pricing in it. It would print out a sticker that you as a consumer would put on your plastic bag. You could press another button and it would give you the history of a mango or whatever else you wanted. And we as consumers were just not ready for it. But now, especially because of the pandemic, we're willing to use these kinds of technologies. John, you have a look at the new Walmart format.
That's about technology too, Phil. They debuted a new look in certain supercenters that they're going to expand to at least 200 stores by the end of this fiscal year, including some health centers and neighborhood markets. This is a bold look that, at once kind of distances, Walmart from this idea that it was a discount warehouse at one point or what have you, but is really based on this whole big theme that they've got of integrating the digital and physical. And you can see it right out in front of the store. The logo is printed on the store looks identical to the logo that is in the App Store, right? It's the same shape and everything else. Inside the store, it's wayfinding that has kind of been inspired by airports. Interesting, bold signage, in the departments. A couple interesting takeaways on this. We have not heard a lot about what they call the Produce 2.0 initiative, which they announced late last year, and they said we're going to be in half the stores in the U.S. this year. That was a merchandising initiative that was going to come into their produce departments. Obviously, with the pandemic, they're not going to have time to be inside the stores doing that kind of work at this time. So kind of looking at the photographs, you can divine that, some of those elements, lower store shelves, wider aisles in produce and integrated organics, for example, have been carried out in this new design. And all but, what they were talking about, a lot of pricing signs, which we don't see quite as much of in the photographs as might have been, forecasted in this Produce 2.0 initiative. So interesting stuff at Walmart. Their stores look very different than they would have only a couple of years ago, and they owe it all to integrating with digital.
And also, when we look at the produce departments of all retailers, I was on a call yesterday with some growers, some tree fruit growers, and what they're hearing from a lot of retailers, what they heard pre-COVID is, we want to make sure that, you're not putting your produce items in plastic bags and stuff like that. And then COVID hits and every retailer is saying plastic bags, plastic clamshells. We don't want customers, touching things. So I'm sure that, that has slowed down the Produce 2.0 initiative just a bit as well. Also, congratulations to a good friend of both of ours, John. Tell me what's happening with Neil Stern.
Yeah, interesting information. Neil Stern, as everybody probably knows, he's been with McMillan Doolittle handling their retail practice
forever.
Right? Since 1986. The
Wow.
last time the Mets won a World Series, that's how long ago this is. And he's been named the new CEO effective today of Good Food Holdings, which itself is an interesting conglomerate of natural or organic and premium focused grocery stores on the West Coast, including Bristol Farms, Metropolitan Market, New Seasons, New Leaf, and Lazy Acres. They're owned by the Korean company called E-Mart, which is kind of quietly acquired some of these brands. Yep. Neil tells me he's going to look at this idea of developing central services to have to roll out to the banners, which are all run individually, and further expansion both geographically, and a look at acquisitions as well, and sort of how to pay for all that. So
yeah, I think it's a smart move for them. Certainly with Kevin Davis taking, a couple steps back from, the daily operations and so on. I think Neil is going to do fabulous things for him. So Neil, congratulations from all of us. We're here. We want you to come on to Winsight Live as well and tell us about what you're doing. We're not going to push you the first week or probably the first month, but we want, you to come and join us. And Kat, we talk a lot about communication, especially during COVID-19, whether it's wearing masks or whatever else, but you have a different story about communication and why it's important at retail. Share that with us.
Yeah, and it goes back to technology. So we were talking about consumer-facing apps, and this is a employee-facing app. So Beekeeper has an app that they're rolling out that grocers can use to communicate with their staff, and it's a two-way communication, so it can go from top down to bottom up. And why it's so important right now is I was talking to the CEO, Christian Grossman, and he was saying, as we all know, employee morale is extremely low right now, probably maybe the lowest it's ever been. And so this is why it's very important that everybody is communicating transparently with each other. So, the C-suite or top brass can recognize what, the frontline employees are doing. and frontline employees, if they have a concern, now have a way to communicate back up so that concern can be addressed very quickly. The app also does, some regular jobs, things like keeping track of schedules and things like that. But in this particular time, he really wanted to stress that it was a really great way in order to keep communication lines open, which is extremely important in a time of stress, and just also to help employees feel appreciated and know that they are, people are worrying about them, wanting to take care of them, and making sure that everything is okay in their worlds.
I wanted to ask you about the scheduling in particular, because one of the complaints that I hear, and UFCW has certainly raised this complaint a number of times as well, is that the schedules are a mess. People don't know when they're supposed to work. They get off at 2 a.m. and they've got to be back by 6 a.m. I mean, all that stuff. So I understand that need for the top down and the bottom up communication being very important for Beekeeper. But also, I hope that it's a great scheduling tool, because that's one of the reasons that, I just hear people, in the middle of their shift, taking off their mask, taking off their apron and just walking out and saying, hey, I have a life. I can't deal with this.
Yeah, I think this is like kind of a centralized location. So it takes the paper out of it. So, you don't have to physically go into the store to say, what's my schedule? What am I going to be working, the next week? It's all handy in your cell phone. And if you need to swap, shifts, it also makes it very easy for you to communicate with your fellow employees to say, hey, I'm scheduled for this shift, can't work it. Can somebody, swap for a different day? So it really just kind of makes it easier on all aspects in order to create that cohesive communication amongst all members of the team.
So before we get to your last story, and Kat, because Jen is off today or in another meeting today, you're going to give us our good news. But I want to go to our Facebook page, and there's a couple things. John Pandol said, at a roadside diner in Sonora, Mexico, the waiter handed you a plastic bag in which to place your mask while dining. The same guy with cryptocurrency fake ID. Yes, John, I know that. Sorry, that last line about the same guy was my addition. His quote ends at dining. Oh, no, that was from Tony. Tony's telling me that. Sorry, John. Sorry, Tony. I should read it before I talk about it. And then also David Grotto's with us, and David would take a selfie with Tally. So get to Schnooks, David, and you could get, that Tally. So Kat, give us our last story, which is about a pivot of a retailer, and then give us some good news.
Yeah. So Barron's Market, which operates, I think now 9 stores in San Diego, great operator. I was talking with Rachel Shimarani. She's the executive vice president there. And when she was talking to a friend about what's going on in the industry right now, he coined the term pandemic pivot, and everybody is doing the pandemic pivot, which I thought was great. But what they've had to do, many retailers are, they did a booming business out of their salad bars and hot bars. And when the pandemic first hit, they had to shut that all down. So they went to prepackaged salads. They chose about 9 different varieties that kind of ran the gamut, charged $6.99 per salad. And that has proved really popular. And it allows customers, they used to get customers to come in 2 or 3 times a week. And now those customers are only coming in once a week. And they're now working also from home, so they can buy their full week's worth of salad and still have a fresh salad because it's freshly packaged, and they can just put it in their refrigerator till it's ready for them to eat. They also went to fully packaged bulk, which she saw sales double or triple. So that was something that was actually a benefit that came out of the pandemic, is they took away the self-serve bulk, and customers are really liking that. So might be something for other retailers to take a look at.
So Kat, before you get to good news, I'd like to ask a question of everybody on this. As we're seeing people shopping less often, once a week, as you pointed out, to, put more salads in the refrigerator and so on, what do we think is going to happen to the size of refrigerators and freezers? Are they going to get bigger? We just had a report the other day from Acosta that showed that people are already starting to really think about stocking up as the pandemic hits, COVID-19 part two. Are we going to see, bigger refrigerators and freezers? And before you answer that, let me tell you, because I was just looking at buying a new refrigerator because ours is, on the way out. What's interesting to me is most refrigerators and freezers that are sold in this country from major brands that we all know and love are actually assembled in Mexico. They're put together in Mexico. And those factories have been shut down or they're not up to capacity. So if you want to go to Lowe's or Home Depot today and get a refrigerator, you're probably not going to get one till December or January. So if you're looking for a new refrigerator, just a word of the wise, you can get others that are made in other parts of the world, like Fisher Paykel, but those are 12 to 14 grand. So, you don't want to go that direction. But, what do you all think? Are we going to see a time for bigger refrigerators and freezers in people's homes, or an extra one in their garage, or whatever that looks like? Jackson, what about you?
Absolutely. Yes. Frankly, I think everything inside the home is going to get bigger. My wife and I just bought a new island for our kitchen because we're at home cooking all the time and we need the extra space. And I think that sort of need is going to extend to every piece of the home. And not just because we need more space to fit food, but the more years go by, the more technology we're going to try to stack inside of these refrigerators and freezers. I mean, I had a futurist at one of the C-Store conferences a couple of years ago talk about, wouldn't it be great if you could order food via drone from your refrigerator, or if your refrigerator was smart enough to order food on its own when your fridge is out of food? I think we're moving toward that, and the pandemic is only going to move us there faster.
Yeah, we do a report. A trend report. And it goes back about 6 years ago, I think, and Tony can correct me if I'm wrong here, 6 or 7 years ago. And what we showed is what a smart refrigerator should be, where the shelves were actually scales, around the door was a scanner. And every time, milk was the example that I used, every time you put milk in and out of the refrigerator, it would calculate how much milk you used. And it would then, either you could connect it to online ordering, Instacart, Albertsons, whatever, and automatically order milk the day, just in time, if you would, the day that you were going to run out of milk. Or you could set it up for 2 days before, or set it up where, you would get something on your phone, a pop-up that would say, hey, Phil, you're going to run out of milk in a day. Should I order it for you? So again, those technologies are easy technologies to incorporate into what you're saying. So John, you moved recently. Did you get a bigger refrigerator and freezer?
No. I'm in New York, the home of the Galley Kitchen, and we do have plans to renovate at some point, and we'll probably get a larger one. But my point was going to be, I think that large refrigerators have sort of been a thing for a while now and are really supporting the big retailers like the Costco's and the Walmarts already. I mean, that said, we've got a garage. Maybe you can throw a freezer in the garage. That's a nice use, or downstairs or what have you. So yeah, that's a sure possibility from our standpoint.
And Kat, two things: larger refrigerator, freezer, and some good news to wrap us up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably are. And to Jackson's point, I think they're going to be, the smart refrigerators where you can really start incorporating what you need into your ordering, your online ordering. So I think that's kind of the wave of the future, where your refrigerator is going to almost be smarter than you when it comes to knowing what you need. But speaking of refrigerators and food, and my good news today is we have worried a lot about humans in the pandemic, but we can't forget our animal friends. And zoos have been hard hit because they also have had to shut down, but they still have animals to feed, much like everybody has, families to feed. So what Rouse's has done is they have partnered with Audubon, which Rouse's is based in Louisiana, and Audubon is the zoo that's in New Orleans. So they are now partnering with them in order to have their customers donate so they can help feed the animals. Audubon has really struggled with keeping the animals fed. So Rouse's now says you can donate $1 to feed a giraffe, $5 to feed a penguin, or $10 to feed a lion, which I think is great. We have to remember that it's not just us suffering through this pandemic, it's our animal friends too.
So I agree. I think it's a fabulous program. My question is, why does a penguin cost more to feed than a giraffe? I mean, I've been to the Living Desert in Palm Desert, and they have giraffes and they have giraffe feedings and stuff like that. And giraffes are huge. I mean, these animals are huge, and a penguin is just like a little thing.
But penguins eat fish, right?
I was gonna say, I think it's what they eat.
Oh,
Giraffes
yeah,
just
penguins
eat
eat fish,
right?
And giraffes eat carrots and
yeah.
grass. So with that, Kat, again, thank you so much for everything you've done for Winsight Live, for Winsight Grocery Business. It is much appreciated. You will be missed. Jackson, thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you on a lot in the future. And to all of our viewers, again, check out our archives so you can hear all of Kat's great words over the past 6 or 7 months that we've been doing this. Our archives are on Winsight Grocery Business, on CSP, on Restaurant Business, and SupermarketGuru.com, all of our Facebook pages, and we will see you again next week at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And until then, be safe, wear a mask, and everybody give a virtual bye to Kat. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you. Miss you guys.